Hello, I'm Jeff Allen Wolf. Welcome back to A World Gone Mad, and it's time for Monday Fallout. The headlines are radioactive, the truth is buried in the rubble, and I'm here to dig it out. Now, systems are breaking. Trust gone. Power plays everywhere. And before I get into today's fallout, I want to say this. Yes, I hear you, listeners. I know a lot of you feel like the news right now is a fire hose hooked up to a cement truck aimed directly at your brain. It's exhausting, it's overwhelming, and sometimes it feels like the only thing you can do is curl up and wait for the next round to hit. But here's the thing. We're not powerless. Step one is staying engaged. Keep your eyes open. Keep asking questions. Keep refusing to look away. Even when you'd rather scroll videos on TikTok of raccoons stealing hot dogs. Step two, find your lane. You can't fix everything unless you're secretly Batman, in which case, thanks for listening to the podcast. But you can push back where you live, where you work, where your voice actually lands. And step three, stay connected. Talk to the people who care, who think, who challenge you. People who don't just nod along like dashboard bobbleheads. That's how you keep perspective. Keep your sanity and keep from throwing your phone into a lake when the big picture feels out of reach. And most of all, stay watchful. Okay, here we go. And here's the first headline. The President of the United States just took over Washington, D.C.'s police department. Not advised, not coordinated, not sent them a nice fruit basket with suggestions, took over. The police department handed control to his attorney general, rolled in 800 National Guard troops, sprinkled in the FBI, the DEA, and ATF agents for flavor. You know, it's like Avengers, the Avengers superhero team, but if every superhero's power was search warrant. Now DC isn't a state, which means, and this is important, it's under a different set of rules. In a real city with statehood, the president can't just walk in and say, "Nice police force you've got here." Shame if someone federally controlled it. Because of the way DC's home rule works, there's a legal backdoor where the president can claim a public safety emergency and take charge. That's what happened. And it's rare. Think comet landing on your house rare. Trump says it's about crime, except crime in D.C. is down 26% this year, which means this isn't a fire alarm. This is the guy pulling the fire alarm, then showing up with a hose and saying, "Don't worry, I'll handle this." It's political theater with armed extras. And then, here's the fun part. Trump warned other cities this would be coming their way. Imagine your city's mayor's day. Coffee, emails, and a presidential threat that Trump might just waltz in and take over your police department, too. This is the kind of thing that doesn't just happen in democracies. It happens in places where law and order means my law, my order. Now, I'm not saying this is martial law, but it's definitely shopping in the same aisle. And if we don't pay attention, one day we might wake up and find the carts already full. And here's where it stops being a hypothetical and starts looking like a pattern. In just days, Trump will meet privately with Vladimir Putin in Alaska. The same Trump who just centralized police power in the Capitol will be sitting down with a man who has perfected the art of turning temporary measures into permanent control. This isn't cute. This isn't routine politics. This is dangerous. The question isn't whether D.C. was a one-off stunt. The question is, what's next? Tomorrow? Next month? And if you think it can't happen where you live, ask yourself how many times in history people have said exactly that right before it did. From seizing control in D.C. to a closed-door session with Vladimir Putin in Alaska, this week isn't just busy. It's starting to look like a master class in how power gets traded off the record. Friday, Trump will sit down with Putin, and here's the kicker. There will be no one in the room to take notes. No American transcriber, no official record, not even some poor intern with a yellow legal pad pretending to keep up. That's the opposite of how presidents are supposed to operate. Usually you bring your own person to write down exactly what's said. Not for gossip, but so there's a factual, accountable record of what commitments get made on behalf of the United States. Without that, the only truth we get is whatever Trump and Putin decide to tell us afterward. Or decide not to tell us. Which means we could get anything from a polished White House statement to Putin's next year in review calendar. Second, this isn't just coffee with a foreign dignitary. This is Vladimir Putin, the guy who has spent decades dismantling democracies like other people collect snow globes. Ukraine is still under attack. NATO is still holding the line. And Trump has openly floated land swaps that would hand Russia permanent control of Ukrainian territory. That's not peacemaking. That's basically saying, congrats on your invasion, here's the deed to the place. And third, this isn't some minor diplomatic misstep. This could be the total capitulation of Ukraine, lock, stock, and barrel, handed to Putin because Trump is willing to do his bidding. All this without Ukraine's involvement. If that happens, it tells every authoritarian watching that you can take what you want by force, and the United States might even gift wrap it for you. That's not just dangerous. It's an open invitation for more wars, more invasions, and a reshaping of the world map in ways that will come crashing back on us. No American witness, no transcript, and remember, no accountability. Just two men in a room, one desperate to hold on to power, Trump, the other an expert at showing him how to keep it, Putin. That's not transparency. That's a black box with global consequences. And if you thought the week's insanity stopped at a black box in Alaska, think again. Russia just ripped up its own promise not to deploy short and medium-range nuclear missiles. That's right. They had taken a self-imposed moratorium, basically their version of saying, hey, don't worry, we'll keep these nuclear missiles in the back of the closet. And then Russia just set that on fire. Medvedev's out there talking about NATO's hostile posture, like he's the aggrieved party. And within hours, Trump answered by moving nuclear submarines closer to Russia. It's like two guys in a bar fight who've decided to skip the punches and go straight to pulling out chainsaws. This is straight out of the Cold War playbook. Except now the stakes are even higher because the players are less predictable dictators. I mean leaders. Okay, I meant dictators. Back then, we at least had back channels, treaties, red phones, something. Now, we've got Putin with zero restraints and Trump. The same Trump who just put the nation's capital under federal control and warned other cities they could be next. Walking into a private meeting with Putin in a matter of days. And remember again, no American witnesses, no transcript, just a perfect opportunity for two men to discuss whatever they want about nuclear posturing with no one to tell us what was promised or traded. So is this Russian missile move directly tied to Trump's D.C. takeover and their Alaska meeting? Officially, no. There's no public statement linking them. But in reality, you have to look at the timing. In the same week Trump flexes raw federal power in D.C., schedules a private sit-down with Putin, and Russia tears up a major nuclear constraint. It doesn't take a tinfoil hat to see this is a part of a bigger reshuffling of power. At the very least, it's a stress test on NATO, on U.S. resolve, on whether anyone will push back. And here's the kicker, listeners. When a country like Russia reintroduces these kinds of missiles, it's not just about pointing them at Europe. It's about destabilizing the entire security map. It forces NATO to respond. It forces the U.S. to posture. And it increases the risk of a split-second miscalculation that could trigger something nobody can walk back. 3 moves in 1 week. Trump federalizes the police in D.C., warns other cities, meets Putin privately. Putin's government then ditches the nuclear restraint that's been in place for years. And now, add to all of this, Ukraine's President Zelensky is banging on the door, backed by NATO and the EU, just trying to get into that Alaska meeting room before decisions about his country are made without him. If you want the perfect image for where Ukraine stands now, it's this. A global scene at 2:17 a.m., Zelensky's message delivered, read, and ignored, while the big powers swap land and war plans like they're trading stories at a poker table. The only thing frozen might be the fate of a nation. This isn't 3 separate headlines. It's one picture. Domestic power grabs at home, strategic muscle flexing abroad, and an ally fighting for survival while the U.S. president meets his adversary in private. It's a reminder that when transparency disappears and power consolidates, the decisions made in those closed rooms don't stay there. They spill out onto the world we all have to live in. If that's all just coincidence, then so is the fact that thunderstorms happen during hurricanes. Wolfpack listeners, I know it feels like all of this is out of control, and a lot of it is, but not all of it. There are things you can do right now, and it bears repeating. You've heard this before. Call your local representative, your senator, your member of Congress. Tell them exactly how you feel about what's going on. Don't just yell into the void. Make it viable, make it specific, and make it impossible for them to pretend they didn't hear it. Demand that Democrats find their voice and say something out loud instead of letting this slide in by silence. And while you're at it, stay connected to the people who care, who think, and who are paying attention. That's how you turn helplessness into a little bit of leverage. And leverage is how change starts. By the way, I want to thank everyone who's been reaching out. The emails, the phone calls, the text messages. It's been a lot lately. And here's the interesting part. About 99% of those emails and voice messages have been from brand new listeners. People who just found the show, heard what's going on, and decided they had to speak up. That's great. I love that. But it also makes me wonder if these new listeners can make the time to pick up the phone and leave a voice message or hit send with an email. What could happen if everyone listening right now does the same thing? Including those of you who've been with me since day one, did the same thing. Imagine the noise we could make if we all pushed together. You could call me at 833-399-9653, 24/7 free voice mailbox, or email me at madworldtalk@gmail.com, madworldtalk@gmail. If you've got something to say, don't sit on it. Say it. Use the phone, use the email. Without hearing from you, I am sitting in a room talking to myself. Also, please leave a review on Apple or Spotify. It's the only way my podcast gets noticed instead of being buried. Hey, I show up every day to call out people and news for what they are. Sure, you might have heard this somewhere else, but not like this. I don't dress it up, I don't water it down, and I sure as hell don't run it through a filter. This has been A World Gone Mad, Monday's Fallout Edition. I'm Jeff Allen Wolf. I'll be back Wednesday, because someone has to say the shit no one else will. And apparently, that job's mine. Until then, Wolfpack listeners, stay skeptical, stay focused, and most of all, stay hopeful.